to share with you guys. My name is Timothy and I am the owner of Northern Night Studios. I started as an enthusiastic person wanting to do all of arts and professional content creation. I have always been a creative person and started many projects such as creating games, making YouTube videos, starting an indie company and much more. In the last 3 years, I have spent some time gathering information and learning about 3D environment design, and I hope to share this knowledge with you today. Now, let me explain what we're going to learn. So in this course, I hope to teach you the fundamentals of 3D environment design and what methods people use in the industry. These basics are what you could call the 8 commandments of creating any environment. These are reference, gray boxing, textures and models, lighting, atmosphere, and color correction. Before you dive headfirst into your big projects and ideas, it's important to have a plan for your creations. For this, we use reference and mood boards. You have probably used reference before in school or when you have wanted to create something big. This is a great way to get inspiration and a general understanding for things such as lighting, scale and volume, what models to use, and the theme for your project. To place down all your reference and ideas into one place, we use mood boards. There are many tools to create mood boards, but the one I am going to recommend and what I personally use is PureRef. I promise this is not sponsored, but I wish it was, to be honest. It's a great program. This is an easy to use mood board creator where you can just drag and drop images and move them anywhere and easily scale them. The great part about PureRef is that it's a free program that is funded by user donations, meaning you can use it for free, or if you feel generous, you can pay for it. PureRef also keep file sizes very low compared to all the images you put into your mood boards, so don't be scared to fill up your mood boards with a lot of reference. Now, where do we collect all this reference, you might ask? Some great ways to get reference is to find games that has the same theme as you want, look at professional artists within the industry, go to image board sites such as DeviantArt, Quixel, or just search on Google. When you have created your mood board, we can move on to gray boxing, or otherwise called the blockout phase. Making sure that you have a reliable foundation is very important to save time and not go back having to redo huge parts of your project just because you winged it and something didn't look as you had planned. The blockout phase generally consists of 3 parts. The first part is what you can call a concept. This can range from sketching out your place on a drawing or creating a simplistic overview map. This will give you a sense of scale in 2D space and how the map will play out when it's finished. Here you can make the roads, figure out where houses will be, basic mountains or terrain. You then move on to the second stage where you actually start building your environment. Here you can build up your scene from the first stage and get a sense of scale and volume in 3D space. You don't want to go into the details, since this is like the scaffolding that you'll build on later down the line, so keep it simple with basic shapes like boxes, balls, and cones. It is important that you plan out your environment on this stage, since this is the foundation of the finished product. So when you feel like everything looks like how you imagined it in very simple form, you can then move on to the third stage. The third stage is a lot like the second stage, except that you start planning out the details. Here you can place down stuff like fountains, trees, large patches of foliage or bushes, stairs and other important stuff to be like guidelines for building out the finished product. Textures and models are mostly a question of how much control you want. Currently, we have Quixel Megascans with a huge asset library that scan real-world items for photorealism. The great part about this is that it's a huge time saver. It's free and it's also like building with Lego blocks. On the other hand, if they don't have a special item that you really need, you would have to go gather it from other resources or create it on your own. So basically you can take the easy path of using the Quixel programs that will give you a lot of assets, and if you learn them, also a lot of customization. I'll reference videos for Quixel tutorials. On the other hand, you have programs that you can learn like Blender, ZBrush, Cinema 4D, and many other programs, but they really have a hard learning curve, but in the end, it's worth it. It also depends really on how much time you want to spend on textures and models, but you can get away with using assets instead of using your own assets 95% of the time. Once you collected everything that you want and you think you are going to need, just start experimenting and building your scene with the gray boxing you made, and finishing off all the details to bring your scene to life. I highly suggest looking more into how to create terrain, since this can be one of the harder parts, hence there not really being any assets that gives you a finished terrain that you would want. Lighting and atmosphere work a lot together. If you have one wrong but the other right, it's still probably going to look bad. There's a ton of stuff you can learn about lighting, but at the same time, it's a bit unnecessary. You have a bunch of lighting techniques. You can learn them down the road on YouTube, like keeping half the face dark and the other half lit up. But let's talk about the basics. You normally have three types of light. Point light being the most basic. The point light emits lights everywhere from its source, and it's useful for example neon lights or fireflies. Spotlight is just what it sounds. It lights up one spot and is used for example for only lighting up one person or highlighting something with lights to bring attention to that spot. Lastly, we have surface light that lights up any surface of any kind. It can be a wall, ceiling, truck, and much more. It's just to light up something that you want to show, or mostly for the aesthetic. Lighting can be one of the most important aspects in terms of making your project look good. You should use reference to see how other people light up their projects and refer to that when creating your own. The great part about lighting is that it's easy to experiment with, so you can try things that might look bad or end up looking great. You don't want to overexpose your scenes and make them look too bright, because that can look very bland and boring at times. But it can also look amazing, like God rays emitting from the sun. You want to be preservative with your lighting, but use reference and you're pretty much going to fly through this part in your projects. Atmosphere is also very important and works with lighting to add final touches to your scene. For example, if you were to create a rainy scene, it would look really bad if you just added rain and called it a day. A great way to know how to improve on your atmosphere is to yet again look at reference. So let's take a rainy scene for example. Firstly, you have your rain, but just that looks unrealistic. You normally add fog, puddles, raindrops on windows and cars, water flowing down with the road, and if it's a lot of rain, even making sure it's overflowing at some places, and much more. Once you have added all these extra effects, so to say, that we use as the atmosphere, you need to make sure the color is right. Coloring is generally pretty easy. If it's cold or rainy, make the colors a bit more blue to indicate bad weather. If you're on a beach, or maybe it's a really sunny day, you want to add some warm colors to indicate that it's warm outside. This can also be location based. If you were to example do scenes in LA, then it will be more warm colors. What I suggest is doing the basic lighting first and then moving on to the atmosphere and color correction. And while doing that, making sure that you work on the lighting interconnected to the atmosphere so they work together and not against each other. Now this is a very bare bones course on 3D environment design, so I highly suggest you look into reference, grayboxing, textures, models, lighting, atmosphere, foliage, terrain and color correction more in depth on YouTube or on our playlist that we have created on our channel. The point of this is to show you that it's not meant to be hard and that anyone can learn it with enough patience and enthusiasm. So I hope this was helpful for you and gave you a picture on how people created projects. Thanks for watching, and make sure you look more in depth to the subjects if this caught your interest.